With the NBA playoffs fast approaching, conversations now revolve around separating the contenders from the pretenders. But don't overlook another group of teams that could play a meaningful role come the postseason. The party crashers, the giant slayers, capable of throwing a championship caliber team's best laid plans drastically off course.
Verts all over Booker leads to this. Barnes now, Scotty B to the rim.
No team fits that bill right now like the Toronto Raptors.
Please, you understand this if you're the Brooklyn Nets. I want zero part of playing a Nick Nurse coach team with that championship culture, how hard they play, the lineups they can throw at you. I want no part of having to go to Toronto and win a basketball game because I'm in the play-in.
You may not fear the Raptors, but your favorite team is probably desperate to avoid them come April. Those Doris Burke comments were specific to a potential play-in matchup against the Nets, in which case Brooklyn would likely have to travel north of the border without an unvaccinated Kyrie Irving. But plenty more East contenders than just the shorthanded Nets need to beware. The Raptors entered the new year outside the Eastern Conference's top 10, but as Toronto found more health, consistency, and a real home court advantage again, the team surged. From New Year's Eve through March 20th, the Raptors played at a 53-win pace, and now have a real shot at not just avoiding the play-in, but possibly jumping into the East's top 5. The Raptors' lack of a true center and traditional rim protector, the team's struggles scoring in the half court, and a lack of depth mean this squad isn't built to contend for a championship this spring. But they are tailor-made to be a pain in the ass come the postseason. For one, the Raptors can defend. Sure, Toronto's 13th ranked defense through 71 games may not sound all that impressive, but the Raps have been stingier than the defending champion Bucks this season and own a top 8 D since that New Year's turnaround. The Raptors can throw a plethora of lengthy, switchable defensive matchup nightmares at opponents, and they can keep them coming in waves. What the team lacks in traditional size at the 5 spot, it makes up for with mind-bending length across the board.
They're everywhere.
The one undersized guy in Toronto's rotation is all-star point guard Fred VanVleet, who just so happens to be among the best defenders at the point of attack and chasing shooters around screens. As a helper, VanVleet's perfectly timed digs also pry turnovers from unsuspecting big men in the post. Even gunner Gary Trent has tapped into his defensive potential under head coach Nick Nurse, but he's also earned Nurse's trust with his defensive activity and impact. Trent ranks top 10 in steals and top 30 in defensive plays per foul committed. Having VanVleet and Trent in front of a lengthy frontcourt that features 3 of Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa, Thaddeus Young, or Chris Boucher puts teams in a torture chamber. Toronto has a revolving door of similarly built defenders just waiting to make life a living hell for opposing shot creators.
The Toronto series was the hardest playoff series I've ever been a part of. I even told those guys afterwards, like, nobody has ever made me work as hard or made it as tough on me for 7 straight games as they have.
That lineup versatility and Nurse's creativity also mean advantages opponents should have against the Raptors don't always play out as expected. Case in point, when the centerless Raps limped into the Denver altitude to play reigning MVP Nikola Jokic and his Nuggets on the second night of a back-to-back. 24 hours after the Raptors beat the league-best Suns in Phoenix, conventional wisdom said Jokic would have his way with them. Instead, an unfathomably long lineup featuring Barnes, Young, Boucher, rookie Delano Banton, and big man Khem Birch turned the game early in the 4th quarter by putting extreme pressure on Denver's ball handlers on the perimeter while taking turns fronting or doubling Jokic off the ball in the post. The Joker couldn't hurt the Raptors if the Nuggets struggled to even get him the ball. In a recent VanVleet-less and Anunoby-less win in Philly, Toronto frustrated Jokic's MVP counterpart Joel Embiid, who, again, theoretically should have had an obvious advantage given his size. Nurse and this group will simply find a way to beat you, or at the very least, take something away from you. Against the Sixers, Achiuwa was frustrating Embiid inside 1 minute, then hanging with James Harden or Tyrese Maxey on the perimeter the next. In that aforementioned win over the Suns, Monty Williams even went with both of Bismack Biyombo and JaVale McGee at one point against the small Raptors in an effort to neutralize Toronto inside and on the glass. Though the lack of a true center can bite the Raps on the defensive glass, Toronto is a top 2 offensive rebounding team. The Raptors also turn opponents over more than any other team to fuel a top 5 transition attack. Those transition opportunities can dry up in the playoffs, but the offensive rebounding and the opponent turnovers, while the Raptors take care of the ball themselves, is all part of a simple yet effective strategy to end up with more shot attempts than their opponents. All of this, and the fact that the team has 2 all-star caliber players in Van Vliet and Siakam, help explain why the Raptors have a winning record against the 9 teams who currently own 600+ winning percentages. And why Toronto is 7-2 against the East's vaunted top 3 of Miami, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia. Now, it's fair to point out that the Raptors haven't always played those teams at full strength. In sweeping the 3-game season series against the Bucks, for example, the Raps only encountered Giannis Antetokounmpo once. But at least 2 of Milwaukee's big 3 played in all 3 contests, and Toronto hasn't exactly benefited from pristine health either. Its preferred starting lineup of Van Vliet, Trent, Anunoby, Barnes, and Siakam only played 18 of the team's first 71 games together, with the Raptors going 12-6 in those games. Look, the Raptors obviously aren't anything close to unbeatable. A team with a size advantage like Embiid's Sixers would likely break them down eventually, while teams that move and shoot the ball like Miami or Milwaukee can take advantage of Toronto's over-aggressive defense and its willingness to help off of shooters. The Raps aren't good enough to win 3 or 4 playoff series. It's possible they won't even win 1. But just because they might not actually slay the Dragon doesn't mean they won't make some title contending favorites' path that much more difficult. The last team to win a championship after having to play more than 5 games in the first round was the 2014 Spurs. And only twice since the NBA adopted a best-of-7 first-round format 19 years ago has a team marched to a championship after having to go the distance in round 1. The playoffs are about survival, and for the East's top contenders, avoiding the Raptors when the postseason tips off will be key to that survival.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video and want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button.